How many times have you told your kid to eat their vegetables, brush their teeth, get more sleep, drink more water? And how many times did they actually want to do it? Not just do it, but want to do it. That's the problem we're solving today. Here's what I learned as the oldest of 6 kids. Telling people what they should do doesn't work. Not for kids, not for adults, not ever really. I didn't have authority over my 5 younger siblings. I was just the oldest, but I had responsibility. And I had to figure out how to get them to actually listen to me without being able to force them to do anything. So I spent my whole childhood explaining why. Every single thing I asked them to do came with actual consequences. Social ones, if you do this, your friends will react this way. Physical ones, if you don't eat, you will feel this way. Immediate ones, long-term ones, mild ones, severe ones, inconveniences, serious problems. But there was always a real reason, not just a rule. I can't help it. That's how I talk now. It drives my kids crazy, but that's what stuck. Most parents think they are explaining consequences, and they kind of are. Don't run into the street because a car will hit you. Eat your vegetables because you need the nutrition. Get enough sleep because you'll be tired tomorrow. But our kids have been hearing consequences from adults their whole lives, and a lot of those consequences are myths. Cross your eyes and they'll get stuck. Eat a seed and a watermelon will grow in your stomach. Go swimming right after eating and you will drown. I stopped believing adults when they told me scary things would happen because I crossed my eyes and they didn't get stuck. I went swimming after eating and I obviously didn't drown. And I accidentally swallowed many watermelon seeds and never grew a watermelon. Once you figure out that grown-ups have been exaggerating or making things up, why would you believe the next consequence they tell you? There's a gap between hearing a consequence and understanding why it matters to you specifically. That gap is what keeps kids, or adults for that matter, from changing their behavior. When my kids were little, I made a decision about how I wanted to raise them. I wasn't focused on getting them to behave in the moment. I was focused on one question: what kind of adults will they be in 20 or 30 or 40 years? So instead of rules, we talked about choices. I use the phrase so much my kids joke about it now. What is our goal right now? And it worked. I remember one afternoon, my older one wanted candy and he was having a complete meltdown over it, screaming, crying, the whole thing. So I asked, what is your goal right now? He said, well, he didn't really say, he screamed, I want the candy. I said, okay, do you think I'm going to give candy to a child who's screaming at me? He said, no. Right. So what do you think you need to do to get the candy? And he thought about it. He actually thought. And then he smiled at me so sweetly and said, Mom, you're so nice. And you've let me have candy before and I was good and not crazy. I think if you let me have candy again, I'll be good this time too. Could I please have the candy? And you know what? He got the candy because it wasn't about winning an argument. It was about him learning to stay in control of himself, to own his goal and figure out the steps to get there. Not because I told him what to do, but because he figured it out. And when he was younger, people gave me some crap about that parenting method. But now that he's 17 and is doing amazing, turns out it worked. He thinks about his goal. He decides what he needs to do to get there and he works on it. He no longer thinks other people are in control of his life and withholding the candy from him. He sees he needs to do something. He needs to change his behavior. He needs to figure something out if there's something he wants. It's not someone else keeping it from him. And I think a lot of people in our world could use that lesson. Another phrase I used constantly was, what do we need to do to make it better? I walked into the living room one day and there were chickens, many chickens inside my house because my children had decided to carry all of our chickens in from the coop. And of course, chickens come with chicken poop and feathers and chaos and noise and scratching. My first instinct was to completely lose it, to freak out about the mess and the chaos and the chickens in my house. I took a breath and I asked, what do we need to do to make this better? The kids looked around the room as if it just occurred to them that there were chickens in the living room. And one of them said, I think we need to take the chickens outside. Yes, I said, what else? We need to clean up the chicken poop. Yes, that's what needs to happen. By asking them to solve it instead of screaming at them about it, they didn't get defensive. They didn't shut down. They didn't see me as the bad guy. Instead, they thought. They learned how to problem solve. They learned that when you make a mess, you're responsible for cleaning it up. And when you make a very strange decision, you have to own it. And that decision turned into a funny family story instead of me melting down, which is what I was doing on the inside. I spent a lot of their childhood screaming on the inside. But the kids learned that consequences are real and you have to be responsible for making things better. I have 2 teenagers now, 17 and 14, same kids. We still use the same framework, but it looks a little different. Background information, my younger child once got themselves into a tree situation, dangling about 20 feet above the ground from a branch, hanging by their hands right over here. I did not know where they were. I went around looking for them. And when I saw them, I panicked. And my child very calmly said, "Mom, I think I made a bad choice." I got my husband and I was too surprised to think of anything else to say except, "Come quick," child's name, "made a bad choice." We coached our child to scoot to the very end of the branch so that it bent right down over the roof and they could safely drop down onto the roof. And we got a tall ladder from a neighbor and it was a whole thing. But we did get my kid down safely. That's the priority, safety first. Once everyone was on solid ground, then we talked about it. I asked, what would be a better choice next time? And they said, not scooting along the branch to the point where it went too far and I couldn't get back, which is a good plan. So we made a contract. That's what we do in our family. We negotiate. I wanted their feet on the ground. They wanted to climb to the very top of the trees. We negotiated middle ground. Tree climbing was okay as long as someone was within shouting distance outside and could hear them if something went wrong. It stuck because my child had agreed to it. They owned it and they saw the reason for it. Now that same child is 14 and still climbs trees, but now they have their cell phone. So different negotiation, different agreement. It changes over time. They're allowed to go a lot higher, but also they have to have their phone with them to call for help. I even checked with our fire department and they said they'd retrieve my kid if they got stuck. So we're all living with this choice and any consequences that may happen. My 17-year-old negotiates different issues, no interest in climbing trees. We recently had to work out the route he'll take on a scooter through downtown though, because the tracks are being repaired. So the train normally would leave him right at the stage door. It's not going anywhere near there. His preferred route is my least preferred route. My preferred route is his least preferred route. So we found a middle ground that works for both of us. After years of this, discussing choices and consequences and owning the outcomes, the teenage years don't look like what I hear from my friends. My friends are dealing with power struggles and rule breaking and rebellion and corrections and discipline. And my kids, it's like living with other responsible humans. More responsible than many adults I know, to be honest. Because they understand that they will have consequences for whatever decision they make. Good consequences or bad consequences. And they have both, and it's fine. They can think through those decisions and we'll deal with them together and it will be fine. Your body also presents a series of choices every single day. Your kids are making decisions about what they eat, how they sleep, whether they move, how they handle stress. And right now, those decisions are based on either rules, you should, or guesses. Hopefully this will be okay for the majority of people, kids or adults. But what if they were based on understanding? What if your kids understood what fiber actually does in their large intestine? Not just eat more fiber because it's good for you, but the actual science behind it, the reason, the consequence. What if they understood why sleep affects literally everything? Why water matters? Why certain foods give you steady energy while others leave you feeling crashed? Why you need to move your body? When kids understand the why, the behavior shifts, not out of guilt, not out of obligation, but out of knowledge. They stop thinking, oh, I have to do this. And they start thinking, this is how my body actually works. And this is what it needs for me to do what I want to do. My first video editor spent months editing the first few modules and body systems of my program. The heart, the lungs, the digestive system, these first sets of organs. She wasn't familiar with anatomy. She was just editing video, doing her job. One day she texted me a photo of her grocery cart with a message, "Look what you made me do." And I was like, what are you talking about? Like, we hadn't done anything about nutrition yet. And she replied, "Now I understand my organs. They feel like pets I need to take good care of. So I want to feed them properly." Not because I told her to, not because it was a rule. She was just editing video because she understood why. That's the shift. That's the moment when someone moves from being told what to do to actually wanting to take care of themselves. And that doesn't just happen with one lesson. It happens when you consistently explain the science, the mechanism, how one system connects to another, what happens when something goes wrong, how real people live with real conditions. When people understand, behavior changes. From guilt to knowledge, from fear to curiosity, from shoulds to choices. You know what the stakes are. Your kids are growing up in a world where misinformation is everywhere. Viral videos, political talking points, and influencers with financial incentives are giving our kids the information that they're going to use to make health decisions for the next 8 decades. They'll navigate medical scares. They'll deal with chronic conditions, their own or someone they love. They'll sit in a doctor's office and need to understand what's being said. And they'll do that either based on fear and guesses and other people's agendas or based on understanding. The school approach, the one where the human body is just one module in a rotating curriculum, that isn't cutting it. Kids forget it. And really, they don't connect it to their real lives. It has nothing to do with what they actually need to know to take care of their own bodies. So of course it doesn't stick because it doesn't feel real. But when you teach the body the way a physician explains it, accurately, clearly, with real-world consequences, that sticks. That's real. And more importantly, it changes how they treat themselves. When kids understand how their bodies work, when they grasp the actual science instead of just hearing what they should do, they stop thinking, I have to take care of myself. Or, as some of us do, I have to take care of myself. I have to take better care of myself. They start thinking, this is my body. I want it to work well for me. I want to take care of it. And that understanding is what this series is about. Not giving you a list of lessons to push through, but showing you what happens when kids move from obligation to ownership, from I should to I want to. Because once kids understand their bodies, once they see how incredible they actually are, everything changes. The choices they make, the way they treat themselves, the way they show up for the people that they care about. If you've been looking for a comprehensive biology program, one that actually sticks, that's taught by a physician, that makes your kids want to take care of themselves, this is it. We teach children about continents they'll never visit, historical events that happened centuries before they were born, mathematical concepts most of them will never apply. And we give the human body, the one thing every single person will live in every day for their entire lives, this tiny chapter in a rotation of all these other science topics. That's backwards. Our kids only get one body for life, and we need to spend plenty of time on it. That's not because the other subjects don't matter. It's because understanding the body you live in is the most universal, most immediately useful, most personal education a child can get. You get one body. You'll use it every day. You'll make decisions about it for the rest of your life. When kids understand how their bodies actually work, when they see how incredible they really are, the choices they make change. The way they treat themselves change. The way they take care of other people changes. And that's why this series exists. If you want to learn and teach your kids this information in a way that's clinically accurate and actually changes behavior, there's a preview classroom where you can see what that looks like. Go to docrobinschool.com/lifepath. In the coming weeks, I'm going to be showing you exactly how it works. Take good care.